Picture this. It's Monday morning, you've been up since 5:30, and the kitchen counter is cluttered with breakfast dishes, your inbox has like 43 messages that are unread, and you rush to get everyone out the door while your brain is spinning with all the other balls that you have to juggle throughout the day. Does this sound familiar at all? What if I told you that in the next 15 minutes or so, you're going to learn a 4-step system that turns this everyday chaos into organized momentum? Yeah, no fancy apps or complicated tech, just a clear design process that's going to help you stop feeling like you're always on and to start actually moving the needle on the things that matter most to you. Hello to all of you wonderful moms out there. This is episode 81 of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life. I'm your host, Anoki Kapasi, and I am here to help you envision and plan and take action on your big ideas so that you can create the impact both at home and at work. So today is the part 3 installment of my Systems Explained series. We're talking about something I hear from so many of you, and that's how to build systems that actually support an ambitious mom life rather than adding one more thing to your plate. We're going to be working through my 4F framework. It's a simple, science-inspired approach. So if you've ever thought, well, I don't have time to get organized, then this episode is especially for you. So let's dive in. Are you looking for a way to blend success and motherhood without losing sight of who you are? I get it. I've been there too. Hi, I'm Anoki, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of 2 boys. As your life coach, I help moms like you create a life you love at home and at work. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overlooked, and want a clear roadmap to a balanced life, a meaningful career, and finally feeling like yourself again while being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this journey to create the life you truly desire, it's time to rediscover your dreams and achieve your ambitious mom life. Before we start, I want to make sure that you tap the follow button by subscribing to the show. It'll appear on your playlist automatically every week, and you'll save yourself a lot of time instead of hunting down the episodes. Okay, now back to the show. So remember that this whole Systems Explained series stems from a client question. She asked me how she could design her life so that she doesn't always have to be on for her family and her business. Now, if you haven't listened to parts 1 and 2, then please go ahead and do that. They're linked in the show notes. It might help to have all of that background before you listen to today's episode. Part 1 is actually all about what systems are. Part 2 is all about why systems are important for living an ambitious mom life and how you're really going to benefit from having them. Now, today is part 3, and we're going to go deep into the how-tos of it all. So I'm actually going to be teaching you about my 4F framework when it comes to systems. And so that's frame, which is really making sure you have a lot of clarity around the system you're trying to build. Then flow, which involves laying out all the steps that you want to have in the system. Fit, which is making sure that it's essentially easy to use, that it fits into your current life. You customized it and personalized it for you. And then fulfill is really to ensure that it's working how we want. So this episode is basically a tutorial. So you might want to just take out a notebook and take notes, or you could even just save this episode to listen to it as often as you want. For example, it might really help to listen to one step and then stop it, do that yourself for your systems that you're trying to build, and then go back and play for the next step so that you can build in the next component of the system. And the reason I say that is that I'm sharing the exact process that I use for myself and for my clients. I mean, no joke. I am giving it all away in this episode because I know how important systems are to making your life plan a success. This whole series is really a great Systems 101 mini course. So let's start with framing. The biggest reason that systems fail for ambitious moms isn't that there's a lack of discipline. It's the lack of clear purpose in the system that we're trying to build and what we expect as the final outcome. Obviously, we're all juggling so many different roles simultaneously. Some of them are even really high stakes. What we do and don't get done are going to have a lasting impact on our lives. So when you're building systems to help you meet all of the demands of the different roles that you have, you really need to know exactly what problem you're solving before you try to systemize it. It's best to really build one system per problem instead of trying to create a system that tries to do it all. And in part one, I did talk about what systems are, but also what systems aren't. And one of the things I mentioned was that it's not a catch-all thing. Okay, so here's kind of a quick checklist to work through. First, you want to understand your starting point. What's not working right now? Essentially, what's your problem? Is it that all these papers are just piling up constantly on your desk? Or are you struggling with meal planning and whatever you set up seems to be falling apart by midweek? You really need to be very specific. The second thing you want to do is to define your end point. What will done look like for you? Now, don't say something like less stress. Get really concrete, articulated. Maybe it's that you want all your papers processed within 24 hours of receiving them, or that you want to put healthy dinners on the table without any last-minute grocery runs. Those are just some examples, but you're going to have to come up with these start and stop definitions for you. Third, you want to identify what pain point the system is going to solve. Is it decision fatigue? Is it that you are wasting time? Are you dealing with extreme mental load? So for example, when I was struggling with strategic planning, which I like to do a combination for my personal and business life, I realized that my true pain point wasn't that I was managing time poorly. It was the cognitive burden of having to constantly reshuffle all of my priorities throughout the week. I would start something and then I would say, oh no, this other thing is more important, or I'm not making enough progress on this other thing. And by the end of the week, everything would be a big mess. Okay, so next, you want to list your non-negotiables and any constraints. So this is where you define the parameters of your system. And this is really crucial. If your system ignores the reality of your life, any real life constraints you're experiencing, then your system is doomed to fail. And these parameters can come in the form of time and money and energy and your environment. So maybe you need a system that works even when you're solo parenting. Or maybe you need a system that doesn't require perfect recall even when you're sleep deprived because you might not be getting as much sleep as you need. So for me, a non-negotiable was that my planning system had to work in a short amount of time. I was only willing to really put in about 20 minutes. And sometimes those 20 minutes involved interruptions, especially from my kids. So I wanted to be able to complete my entire strategic planning in 20 minutes with a buffer in case I got interrupted. So what are your constraints? And the final part of framing is you want to decide on your format. Is it going to be analog and paper-based, or is it going to be digital? Is this a system that only you're going to use, or does it have to be shared with other people? Are you working with a visual format, or is it completely text-based? Maybe it's a software-based workflow. And again, I laid out a lot of different formats that systems come in part one. So go back and check that out if this is a little new to you. So let me give you a quick example for framing my particular system. For strategic planning, my start point is that I have a lot of scattered to-do lists all across multiple places, in notebooks and on my calendar and in my notes app on my phone and even in Notion. And also, all of these tasks span multiple domains of my life. As I said, I like to do strategic planning that spans my personal and business life. So I'm really starting off in a bit of a scattered, overwhelmed, and disorganized situation. And so what I really need as my endpoint is one prioritized place that I can trust to make progress towards my annual, my monthly, and weekly goals. The problem that I'm really dealing with and trying to solve is that I'm mentally overwhelmed from constantly trying to reprioritize all of my tasks and goals. And I have some non-negotiables and constraints. I already mentioned that I wanted my strategic planning to occur in 20 minutes or less. It has to accommodate potential interruptions, and I want my system to work even when I'm tired, because I'm often working on this at the end of a day. The format that I chose to do my strategic planning in is to take multi-sourced notes. As I said, they're in various locations, and combining them into a single digital hub, which for me is in Notion. Now, this level of clarity took me about 5 minutes, but with framing, you are going to be able to save hours because you're going to save yourself from false starts with systems that wouldn't have worked, either because they're not addressing the problem you need to solve or because they're not working in your current stage of life. Now that you have your system framed, let's map out the next step, which is flow. This is where a lot of ambitious moms actually get stuck because we're so great at complex thinking, but sometimes we can overcomplicate even simple processes. So I talked about this before, but a good system maps out three things: the inputs, all the steps from start to finish, and the outputs. So for the input, you're going to want to list what triggers or activates the system, what materials you're going to need, and what information must be captured. For example, my strategic planning is triggered by my work block on Fridays, which is my admin day. And if you're wondering what an admin day is, go check out episode 75, which talks about how I have been meeting my business goals in just 2.5 hours daily. For strategic planning, my inputs require my vision documents and my goals list. And I also need to really capture my current priorities, which might change over time. And that's why I revisit strategic planning at a regular interval. I also need a way to check my progress and make sure I capture upcoming deadlines as part of my plan. So after you have your trigger and your inputs, you want to start building out your system's flow. This is where you outline the steps as a series of 3 to 7 verbs. And the reason I say 3 to 7 steps is because there's actually research that shows that that is like the sweet spot where you maximize both memorability and your completion rate. Now, sometimes our systems are digital, and one of the great things about systems is you're really outsourcing a lot of that mental load. So if you do have to exceed 7, it's not the end of the world. At least with the research, it shows that when we have more steps than that, our brains start to resist the system a little bit. But again, don't stress about it now if you're having trouble with this particular parameter. It's really better to list everything you think you need to get done first. And then later, I'm going to actually share some strategies on how you can simplify in the next step. But basically, I don't want this guideline to be an obstacle to you actually doing this or finishing this. So, for example, a system flow for my strategic planning is I want to capture all my tasks. Then I'm going to align it based on my goals and my life plan. Then I'm going to prioritize my non-negotiables. And then I'm going to schedule those in. I'm going to create time blocks to make sure those things get done in the week. I build in buffers, which I think is critical to having a very flexible, free life. And then my final step in my system is that I have an opportunity to review the progress I've made throughout the week. Each of those is a clear action. Capture, align, prioritize, time block, buffer, and review. Now, your steps are going to be different because you're building a different system. Okay, and then the final part of the system flow is to specify your outputs and where they're going to go. So, at the end of your system, when it's done, what is produced and where does it live? With meal planning, for example, the output might be a workflow of prioritized weekly meal plans that are stored and summarized with daily actions listed out on your calendar. So don't forget to add cues. These are your triggers. What's going to activate it? When, where, and what will start your system. You're going to experience a much higher success rate when you articulate this. So a very clear trigger is something like this: Friday mornings at the kitchen table while drinking coffee. Articulating something like that is much more likely to become a routine than sometimes when I have a moment. Okay, now I want to move to making your system fit with your real life. This is where we take all those steps and we actually make it simple and sustainable. Because if you're not going to be able to use it whenever you need it, and it only works under very specific conditions, then it's not as useful to you and you probably will stop using it in the long run. So the first strategy to simplify is to see if you can reduce the number of steps and even the number of tools that are part of the system. And I mean, seriously, whatever you've mapped out, see if you can cut it down, maybe even by half. I'm not saying it has to be, but it's just going to become more of a habit if it's simple. And so really the exercise here in reducing the number of steps is just to make sure that you don't have any redundancies and that the system really sticks because it's simple enough for you to use. The way I go about simplifying things is obviously you don't want to take out something that's an essential step. And if you have a lot of steps and you feel that each one is essential, then that is totally fine. But you go through each step and ask yourself, is this redundant with another step? If it is, eliminate one. Maybe it's non-essential and you can actually get the same effect without this particular step. Well, then eliminate it. Perhaps there are two steps that overlap with each other. Is there a way to combine them into one step? And if you're having trouble, there's all kinds of ways that you can get a little support on this part. Maybe you can try your favorite AI tool. Just put in a really clever prompt and it can help you simplify your system. You can also look online. There's a lot of templates. There might even be one that's already templated out for the system you're trying to build. Even if it's not the exact one, you can probably take it and modify it or use it as a model to simplify yours. Guys, I really geek out on this kind of stuff. I'm having so much fun with this episode. But if you're finding that systems have been a game changer for you, but you'd like a little more personalized guidance, then I'd really love to invite you to a free exploratory call to see if life planning might be right for you. As a busy mom myself with a PhD, I bring both practical experience and evidence-based approaches to helping you design a life that works for you. And it's not just in theory, but it's in the beautiful messiness of our real mom lives. So if that sounds like something that you'd like, please visit solveformom.com to book your free call, or you can just check out the show notes and there's a link that'll take you right there. Another way to simplify your system is to batch similar tasks where possible. There's a lot of examples I can give, but with strategic planning, I do it on my admin day because then I can just continue from there straight to scheduling. Another strategy, start with what you have, the tools you have. The best system is often built with tools that you already feel comfortable with. You're more likely to use that system if you don't feel like it's a challenge to actually implement the system. For example, a shared Google Calendar where everyone's already using and checking it is probably going to be way better than acquiring a new app and having to learn all the nuances and features of a new app. And now for the final step, which is fulfill. This is where we test small and iterate, where we're going to get some proof about our system's effectiveness. When it comes to systems, perfectionism is the enemy of progress. Now, it's something that us ambitious moms are constantly battling because we're so used to excelling. But in this case, I want you to treat system building like a scientist would. Each iteration is an experiment. And eventually, you're going to develop a system that's going to reliably produce repeatable results. So you want to pilot your new system for a couple weeks. Even 1 to 2 weeks is enough for you to get a sense of the effectiveness of your system. The key here is to track any friction and not just the outcome, okay? Where does the system break down? When do you resist using it? What bottlenecks emerge? Common pitfalls that I see with my coaching clients are things like over-engineering your system. And that is why having a simple system is the best one. You avoid this altogether. Now, your system should work even on your worst days, not just when you're at your best. So you can really let go of any feelings of this can only work if I'm perfect syndrome, okay? And if this is really something that's hard for you to let go, I'm giving you permission to put in a sort of fail-safe or recovery step. I don't want you to do that for every step, but if there's a particular step that you feel extra anxious about, you can put it in as a sort of backup. So if it doesn't work at that step, you have a way to catch it and move forward, and you can just release that worry from your mind. Something else that I see commonly is tool hopping. I want you to commit to 1 or 2 technologies that you feel you need to use for your system, and do not switch for at least about 90 days. If after that you feel it's problematic, then you can substitute one for another and see if that brings an improvement. The problem with switching tools too early is that the issue may not actually be the tool, it just might be that you need to get comfortable with the flow or with accessing the tool. And that is something that time will resolve. Okay, I've alluded to this already, but the best systems will evolve through iteration. Okay, the number of times I've seen a mom design the system perfectly on the first try is about You guessed it, zilch. That is a total myth. It does not happen. Even Amazon and Apple, which make more money than I can even fathom, have continually refined their systems based on real-world feedback. So we have to be realistic in our attempts to build systems. After your pilot period, you can start refining and improving. Maybe you want to build in some visual cues, or perhaps you want to start communicating the roles that other people will need to participate in that system. You'll probably be continuing to streamline your system for a while. And eventually, even with a very solid system, at some point you might need to modify it to scale up if your inputs increase in volume, or maybe even expand the application of your system if your inputs change. Okay, I know I gave you the nitty-gritty details and the step-by-step of how to build a system, but that was the point of this episode, and I know you guys like that. I know you guys want to have the instruction manual so you can go and do things your way on your own. I have a lot of faith in your capabilities and your skill set, and so if you're taking the time to listen to an episode, then I want you to be able to take what I say and actually use it to improve your life, because you've got big and bold things that you want to get done. So let's recap what we covered. My 4F framework for building systems includes 1, framing. You want to define the purpose and outcomes of your systems so you know exactly what problem you're solving. 2, flow. This is where you map a simple sequence of about 3 to 7 steps from input to output and have clear triggers for activating the system. 3, fit. You want to make sure that the system is sustainable by reducing its complexity, batching tasks, and also relying on more familiar tools, at least at first. And then the 4th and final step of my framework is fulfill. Test for a couple weeks, track the friction points, and make improvements with each iteration that you use it in your own life. Now, hopefully you finished your homework from parts 1 and 2. So the homework I want to give you for this week is to take the system that you identified in your prior homework and start to map it out. Draft 1 5-step flow to this high friction point in your life. Just 5 verbs that capture the process. Then create a simple 1-page checklist or template to support it. If you do that, you could actually start using the system this week. You can start to notice if it's helping or where it feels sticky. And let me know. As soon as I hear from you, I would be so excited to add any additional quick tips for you. It's really easy to reach me. There's lots of different ways. Just check the show notes and pick the one that you like the best. Okay, now next week, we're going to be diving into how to apply these same principles to your big creative projects so that you can finally make progress on whatever it is that you want. A book, a business idea, a passion project that you've been putting on the back burner. I can't wait to share it with you, so make sure you tune in for that one. So build that system. Keep it simple, keep it repeatable, and go achieve your ambitious mom life. I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and tell other purpose-driven mamas about it. Who knows? You might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. I'll see you next week for another episode of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life with Anoki Kapasi.